All right, I am back, starting this from the top. So I'm super pumped about our guest today. I met her at a Tony Robbins event. I'll give you her introduction in just a moment. This is going to be my first episode. This is going to turn into a podcast on all things personal development. So super glad you guys are watching this. This episode could be a game changer for some of you struggling with depression and anxiety, and really get some inspiration and learn how to manage some of those emotions. So let's see if I can get her on. All right. Shelly's coming in. Give it 1 second. There she is. All right. Does that look better?
Hi. Did it work
Perfect.
this time?
Yes, worked perfectly. Thanks for joining us. So I want to do
Of
a little
course.
introduction.
Thank you for having me.
I want to do a little introduction for you. So I met Shelly we both crewed the Tony Robbins UPW event in Chicago a couple weeks ago. And I was blessed for her to be in my group. And she did her little introduction, and I was blown away by the things you said and the way you carried yourself. You had a ton of great energy, super positive. And so to hear your story and to see how you are now, I was like, it didn't even make sense to me. So, I mean, it did because I knew it was possible, but that's why I was like, I got to get her on. We got to do a little interview. And of course, you were a gracious guest and just, happy to come on. So I want you to share with the audience what you shared with our group at UPW and a little bit of background on yourself.
Okay. Well, thanks for such a great introduction. That's so sweet of you. Um, Basically, for anyone who hasn't attended, when you crew, everyone sort of gets to know each other and shares why they're there and maybe just a really great breakthrough that they had at their own experience at UPW. And for me, mine was that I had been on antidepressants for 7 years and I was unable to come off of them. And I was told by all medical experts, psychologists, psychiatrists, ADHD experts, just everyone who I ever consulted with about my anxiety, depression, and panic disorder, that I would have to take these medications for life. And it was not an option. I had an illness and a disease, and it could only be treated, not cured. And um, I didn't like the side effects of it. I didn't want to be on drugs. They actually cause cancer if you take them long term. And it was just something that really weighed on me for a long time. And I tried to come off of them and I couldn't because I would experience withdrawal symptoms. And so I attended UPW, and it's a 4-day event for those of you who don't know. And it's at least 12 hours each day. And about 2 weeks later, I quit cold turkey. I had no withdrawal symptoms and I never went on them again. And it's been about 8 months now. So it was
I,
just a really exciting change in my life that I never thought would be possible.
I just got goosebumps hearing that story because it's the second time I've heard it, but it's so powerful. So let's talk a little bit about, how you felt before you attended Unleash the Power Within. The emotional patterns, the anxiety, like on a daily basis, what were you experiencing?
So basically, I had been on a drug, Celexa, for 7 years at that point. And for the most part, my anxiety, depression, and panic disorder was under control um, because of the drugs. And it kind of makes you feel more muted. Like you're very,
Mm-hmm.
I describe it as like a pool of water with no ripples in it. That's kind of how you feel. And like you can get like horrible news and you're just kind of like, oh, okay. And it's like it's very there's just like not a lot of raw emotion that you feel when I was on the drug. And but it would get rid of the anxiety and depression and the panic attacks, but it was a very unnatural feeling because you just didn't experience emotions the same. It's sort of hard to describe. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I wasn't, I was dealing with a little bit of depression at the time because I had been going through some things. Um, but it wasn't out of control like before I started the medication. But I did have this really horrible limiting belief about myself that I was a sick person. And I viewed myself as someone who had an illness and someone who had a disease that couldn't be cured because that's what people literally told me. And when you have multiple experts and medical professionals and these people who have these degrees and specializations telling you this for years, you start to believe it. And so I thought I would always have to be on medication. And so I felt bad about myself in ways because I felt like someone who wasn't capable of living life healthy. And I felt like it was all in my head and I couldn't fix what was going on in my head, if that makes sense.
It
And
makes
so I
total
felt bad
sense.
about
So,
myself, to be honest.
so you keep getting these, all these experts are telling you this, right? And this starts to become your identity, didn't it? You started to own it because if all these people
Yeah,
who have
yeah.
letters, if they have letters after their name, it must be true, right? And so then you're like, I have this identity as
Yeah.
this sick person.
Yeah.
So
And they
one
would tell
second.
me that like in order to deal with uncomfortable, like at work, in the work environment, if my boss was upsetting me and it was triggering a panic attack, they would tell me, oh, just remove yourself from that environment. And it's kind of like sometimes like you can't just remove yourself from things. You have to like face what's going on and deal with it.
So I'm
So
also going to go ahead and
their suggestion was just avoidance.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to guess that on the medications, you couldn't experience the emotional highs either, right? The connection, the gratitude. I'm guessing that was muted as well, right?
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah. Both are it's a very strange feeling. It's very hard to describe. I could feel
Yeah.
happy and I could laugh and like I had my personality, but it was kind of like like you know how when it's raining and you have an umbrella and you know it's raining but you're not getting wet and it's because you have your
Mm-hmm.
umbrella. That's kind of how I felt with emotions. Like nothing could penetrate me really. Nothing, like good or bad. It was
Okay,
really
so a real,
strange.
yeah, just a false, kind of a facade almost over your true self.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we get to Tony, you get to Tony Robbins. What brought you to Tony Robbins, first of all?
So I'm an entrepreneur and I loved watching Tony Robbins on YouTube. He has amazing
Mm-hmm.
leadership videos. And I actually went to Tony Robbins because I wanted to become a better leader and be able to run my business more effectively. And I wanted to help others. And so it really was not about me when I came to Tony Robbins. I really just wanted to learn leadership and how to influence others in a positive way and make positive changes in people's lives. It was just a bonus that happened to me.
So you're in this environment for 4 days, and it's a total party. It's super high energy. You do meditations, you do visualizations, you get hypnotized, you write your goals out, you walk on fire. All these amazing things happen,
Mhm.
and as you're going through this event, talk about your transformation. As the days progressed.
So like in a lot of ways Tony Robbins was like my leadership hero, and you're like, oh, like everyone, when you're an entrepreneur, everyone kind of finds someone who they learn from and they follow closely. And for me it was Tony Robbins. My dad's a success coach and he actually introduced me to Tony Robbins on YouTube. And so when I got there I was so excited because I was like, oh my god, like this leadership guru is here to teach me things and I'm going to become this amazing leader and just run an amazing business. And so I was so excited. um, and I hadn't really comprehended the fact that I was going to walk on fire. I just like didn't think about that or process that emotion um, until Tony started to prepare us for it and was like, "Okay, we're doing the fire walk soon."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Wait, like we're walking on fire? Like what does that mean?" Um, and the fire walk is actually what really, really showed me that I had control over my body. That was actually probably the most life changing part about it because it taught me. So like you never, at least I never considered the idea of walking on fire. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just didn't think that was something that someone does. Like it just didn't seem humanly possible or logical or
Voluntarily,
reasonable.
right?
Right. Like why on earth would I ever do that? So to kind of do something that you consider not realistic or impossible really aligned closely with the idea of me being a sick person and coming off of medication was not realistic or possible. And so being able to put my
Yes.
body through this fire walk, using my mind to control it, because when you walk on fire, you are, in a certain state of mind so that your body is not burnt or injured. And it showed me like I can control my body with my mind and I can control my mind. And it was, real danger and you're feeling the cold and it was real and raw. And you realize
Yes.
like I can get hurt. So I have to control my body with my mind. And so that put into perspective that I have complete control over my body in any way I want to. And I didn't believe that before because everyone told me I didn't.
And you have to have that extreme emotional event, the extreme emotional event to get a new program a lot of times. And through a lot of the growth stuff I've done in the last year, I really realized what Tony's doing. So all of your anxiety and depression, those are fear-based emotions. And he brings you into this event, and you get so anchored into love-based emotions. Even the hypnosis he does before it, he doesn't call it that, but it's hypnosis. He takes you through remembering all of these times in your life when you felt love, when you had fun, when you had joy, when you were grateful, and your whole body starts to change its resonance, and it starts to change the hormones that are dumped into you, and you feel so much love and you start feeling good. And then you can, with that belief system, you can walk on fire. It's not about the fire, right? It's about conquering your limiting beliefs and stepping into that version of you.
Exactly. And
so
I think the fire is just sort of symbolic for like facing those fears. Because fire is scary for anyone, no matter who you are.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you reprogram your body basically.
Yes. And then you have that emotional event, and you know that, hey, if I can walk on fire, what else can I do that I haven't been doing? So you go home and your head's spinning. At least mine was after the first time. I didn't need to sleep. I had unlimited energy. I felt so good. So you go home, you experience a little bit of that. And then what's going through your head? Are you thinking everything they told me was wrong? I'm sure you had to go back home to reality and face some of those patterns from your past and decide, which Shelly's going forward.
Well, actually, I didn't even comprehend all of this until day 3 because it was so much. It's like, and maybe it was the medicine, right? But like, there's just so much that you're like going through. Like, you're experiencing like real joy and happiness, and I hadn't experienced that in a really long time. Like, I would laugh, like I said, I would laugh and have like little, like, I was happy, but I didn't experience like pure joy and happiness. And so I started to experience that again, and I was like almost confused that even existed anymore. Because, for 27 years, my body had been programmed to have a specific habit and behave a certain way. And I had certain thoughts that processed through my head. And, every day I told myself, you're a sick person, you have a disease, you have an illness, like, you have to cope with this. And like, everything I ever did filtered through that belief. Like, oh, I don't know if I can talk to that person because they might stress me out and give me anxiety, so I have to avoid them. Or like, oh, I couldn't work there. And just every little decision I made was filtered through that belief. And so then I started feeling like all this happiness and joy again. And I was like, wow, like, I feel so different. I feel like from my inner, like from the inside, I feel different. Not just like, oh, that's funny, like laughing on TV, but coming from within, like from your heart. There's just pure joy and happiness and gratitude. And so day 2, I go and I learned like a ton about business. And so day 3, I actually like posted on Facebook, and I was like, on day 1, like, Tony helped me fix like all of my anxiety and fears. And on day 2, Tony helped me learn about how to fix my business. I don't know what he could possibly teach me on day 3. And
just getting started.
It was just getting started. And like on like around 10 a.m. on day 3, I burst into tears because Tony had literally taught me how to stop panic attacks. Because panic attacks were like a really big thing that I suffered from. I was having at the peak of my anxiety and depression. I was having 3 or 4 a day, and it was incredibly debilitating. I had to take a semester off from college. Like, I was failing out of classes. It was horrible. And he teaches you how to create new patterns and new triggers, and that a panic attack is basically it's something is triggering your body to have a physical response to it. It's like a fear reaction. And he teaches you how to, stop doing that and instead create a positive reaction to things that trigger you. And he literally, and I like just burst into tears. I called my family, and it was like, I haven't really told this story to anyone actually. So sorry, I'm being kind of emotional, but I had never, I like just didn't think it was possible to not have a panic attack ever again. And so I lived my whole life afraid of having panic attacks, as funny as that sounds, because I was afraid of fear. And so I remember like calling my family, and I was like, I figured it out. Like, I was told by everyone, like, you can't stop having panic attacks. You just will. And you just have to avoid whatever causes them. And so it was just a really amazing, like, discovery. I'm sorry, I'm so emotional.
No, you're getting
But
me
you know,
emotional now. This is great.
But I never thought that it was possible to get better. And so to be able to call my family, and they probably thought I was like crazy because they hadn't heard from me in 3 days. And then all of a sudden I was like telling them I learned how to cure panic disorder. But yeah, it changed my life forever. I became a new person.
So, all right, so give us a few of the little tips that Tony gives, a few of the things. So now, let's say you feel this panic attack coming on. You're like, oh, all I need to do is this.
Well, I don't experience that anymore. First of all, like that doesn't
Okay.
exist anymore. Like there's
Because you're
never
not worried.
time.
You're not
I'm
even
never
worried
like
about
a panic
it.
attack. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it, and it doesn't happen.
Okay.
Because so I have always been like really into health and wellness. Like my business is focused on health and wellness. And so I always exercised. I always ate good. I did a lot of yoga. I was always into that kind of stuff. And so I actually started getting into it when I was first diagnosed with the anxiety, depression, and panic disorder. So I had like really like hit this peak level of fitness and nutrition and like practicing 3.5 hours of yoga a day. So at one point I was like, hey, like I've fixed my body. Like I can stop antidepressants now because I'm better now. And then when I tried to stop, I went through all the withdrawal symptoms like fever, vomiting, nausea. Like it's like being a drug addict basically, where you're going through withdrawal symptoms. And
Wow.
then that was a really shocking time in my early 20s where I realized, oh my God, I'm never going to get off of this, no matter how healthy I am and no matter how militant I am about my wellness. And so I tried twice, both times went through horrible withdrawal. And then over the course of the 7 years, sometimes I would run out of my medicine and I would start to get the fever and the chills and like night
Oh
sweats.
no.
It's a really serious process coming off of antidepressants. And I didn't know that going on it. You know, I was doing so badly that everyone said you need to start this medication, like, because they were so worried about me. And I
Yes.
just kind of listened to them because I was sort of forced to. And I didn't know that it was something that you had these horrible, like, withdrawal symptoms too. And it wasn't addiction, like I was craving it, but it was like if I stopped taking it, my body would
Physical.
revert.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was physical. So I thought, okay, so them not being able to get off of them despite having like this great physical regimen, being in great shape, like all of these things, it was very shocking and upsetting and frightening to me. So this event taught me to take that to another level. It taught me that basically the things that were going on in my mind, like my thoughts, my emotions, my responses to things, those were all a choice. I have a choice
Yes.
on how I react. I control my thoughts. And if I'm feeling out of control, there are ways to get back into control. And it taught me just how to really connect with my mind and my body in unison, because they used to feel like separate entities, as strange as that sounds. Like
Yes.
they did not
Yeah.
feel united. And so this taught me how to like reunite it, but also how to shift the negative thought patterns and the negative physical state that I was in out of habit for 27 years. And so it's like, if you're not really there, it's kind of hard to understand, but there's like a lot of high energy all the time and you're jumping up and down and you're
Yes.
listening to music and
Yeah, of
you're meeting
course.
people and you're hugging people. And like scientifically, if you hug 10 people a day, like or 10 hugs a day, you live a happier life. So you're hugging people all day. And there's just a lot of happiness happening there. And it reprogrammed me for 4 days straight for at least, I think it's like 12 to 16 hours.
Yeah. So when you live in that state of mind, those fear-based emotions, you start to program your cells, the cells in your body and your DNA, right? That's epigenetics. And so they send a different signal, and your cells, the receptors for stress hormones, literally get larger, and you get more of them. And so you go into this environment, you have all these love-based emotions, super high energy, your body language is good, your breathing is deep, the things you're giving meaning to in your life, right? Like everything you give meaning to, you give it a new positive meaning for these 4 days, and it totally shifts the hormones that go into your body. And you have this like body high where you have unstoppable energy. And if you haven't experienced that in years, or most of us ever, and you get into that, you're like, oh my God, this, like, I can't even believe it, right? And then you take that home and you just start to give things happen to you and you give new meaning to it. And you, when you would get anxious, you know, you just go, okay, just breathe. What's the meaning here? And you totally change how you attack everything in your life. So that's really powerful. I love hearing your
Yeah.
story. This is This is awesome. Um,
It
so
brings like
let's
a new
talk
level
about,
of awareness to you.
yes.
Oh, go ahead.
So that's what I was just going to ask was,
It brings like a new level of awareness to you that you didn't
yeah,
know was there, and
yeah.
and you really can control the two.
And so let's talk about some of your practices. I know for me, it's just being like super present to my thoughts, and just I see a thought come in and I go, oh, that's an interesting thought. It's not useful. I'm going to let it go. And so, let's talk about some of your self-awareness, some of your practices right now to keep this happy, high energy Shelly, the one that shows up.
Um, so I get this question a lot because, especially online, people are like, "Oh, you're so high energy. You seem so happy all the time, but like, you still have bad days." Like, I want to
Mm-hmm.
remind everyone that like life has ups and downs no matter what, and it's more about how you process it and how you react to it. And so when I first got back, I used to be like, nobody talk to me for like 5 days. I'm gonna like sit here in this happy state and like master this. And my parents and my family, because I live with my parents right now, they were like, oh, okay, like she's being a little like weird. Um, but it's it's not about isolating yourself. It's not about avoiding the bad days. It's not about like telling bad people to go away or negative things to just disappear. A lot of people think that's what it's about, but no matter what, you're still going to have negative interactions or bad experiences. It's about how you take it in and how you let it impact you. And so I have to practice it, first of all, and I had to practice
Of
it a lot.
course, of
I just
course.
didn't like arrive home and then boom, it was all like done. Um, but so it really depends on the situation. If I'm feeling a lot of anxiety, a lot of times what I try to do is actually, I literally tell myself, okay, I'm going to remove the emotional response I'm feeling. Because sometimes something happens, you feel really mad or you feel really sad
Yeah.
or stressed out. And then you just start to act on those feelings. And so what I try to do is say, okay, I'm going to back off and like observe what those feelings are and observe the situation. And then really just maybe not try to react on emotions and just like find some peace within and like kind of go back to your heart and think about positive things and happy things and so that you can kind of clear your head and your mind again. I do a lot of meditation, especially if my mind is racing. There's days where I just can't process everything in my mind and it makes me just feel like totally frenzied. So I'll literally like leave my house. I'll go outside to the woods because there's these woods nearby
Mm-hmm.
and I'll like just sit in the woods and I'll do a meditation alone.
I
And
do the
I'll
same
do it
thing.
on like a
Yeah.
running path. Do
Yeah.
you?
I do the exact same thing. Oh
And
my
I swear
God.
like the
All the
neighbors
time.
think I'm so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Um, but so I have to like sometimes you just have to say like, okay, I need 5 minutes for myself. And I think we're in a culture where, taking 5 minutes to yourself is not really okay. And you're expected to go all the time. And,
Yeah.
turning off your phone for 20 minutes is like this rude thing to do. But really you need that time to find clarity and peace so that you can, you know, um, react properly and ideally to things.
Yeah. So you
And it's
said a
kind of
lot
hard to
there.
explain because a lot of it is, yeah.
It's
So I
yeah.
hope that
So
made
you
sense.
said it made perfect sense. You had a lot of good gems there. A couple things. I'm going to try to remember everything I wanted to touch on. So you said, of course, you're not like every day is not a good day, but from this point of awareness, the highs are higher and the lows are higher, right? So for me, when I get into a bad state, I just don't stay there, right? I'm like, okay,
Right.
I can let this
Yes.
hang out for a couple minutes, and then I'm like, all right, you know what? It's time to move on, and I know how to do that, and so do you.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to stay there for a week or a month or 27 years, right? You shift out of it when it's
Right.
time. And I love how you said this
Exactly.
is advice I give this advice all the time is observing that emotion come in, and then you just kind of watch it and you don't judge it, and you say, okay, I don't have to own this, and you let that emotion go because those are programmed responses. And one of my mentors told
Right.
me, you can't control the first thought that comes in your head, but you can control the second. So a lot of us have an automatic response with that first thought, and then if someone's like you and they're aware of it, they say, oh, that's interesting. What's a thought I would rather be thinking? And then you focus on that,
Right.
and then that feeling in your body, it doesn't stick around, and you get to move on and do cool things and be happy.
Yeah. And, a lot of times, even like imagining that you're seeing the thought, right? Not that you're feeling, but that you're
Mm-hmm.
just looking at it.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Yes.
Someone moves my stuff and I'm really mad because I can't find my stuff and I want to yell at everyone in the house and be like, who moved my stuff? But really what you do is you step back and you're like, okay, I'm experiencing anger because someone moved my stuff. And then you just kind of like almost look at the thought, if that makes sense. And then
It
you're like,
makes
okay,
perfect sense
do I
to
need to be
me.
angry about this? Do I need to be angry about this? Or do I need to just ask everyone where my stuff is and find it and just be calm? And that's helped me a lot because I would have these snap responses where something bad happens and I'll lay in bed for 3 days out of depression and I won't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And that
Yes.
was horrible, obviously. Or, I'm feeling stressed out and then the stress gets to a level where now I'm experiencing a panic attack and I can't breathe. And so being able to stop it before it accelerates is really key. And that's helped me a
Yeah.
lot.
So
Like you're saying.
I remember at the event that we crewed together. I think there was a crew meeting. You might not have seen this, but he was doing an intervention on someone, and she was like, I'm about to have a panic attack," and he goes, "Well, what does that mean?" And she goes, "Well, I can't breathe," and he goes, "Okay, well, just take a deep breath," and she was like, "Oh," like it's like you're drowning, but you don't realize you can just stand up, right? Like just if
Right.
you force that
Yeah.
breath in, you literally can't have a panic attack. So it's just those little strategies that yeah, this is such an amazing call. So is there anything else you want to share? I want to hear about what you're doing as an entrepreneur as well and how people can find you. But before we do that, do you have any last tips or tricks or anything you want to share with people?
I always tell people, like, don't give up. It's really easy when someone tells you you are something or you're destined to be something to accept that and to sort of give up on it and just accept that and then never push yourself to grow or be more or change or improve. And if I had done that, I never would have been open to the idea of Tony teaching me things like, oh, this is how you can stop having panic attacks, or this is how you can control your thoughts. And so I've learned it even more after Tony. Like I've learned about
Yeah.
Reiki healing, and some people think that's silly or like that's not real, but you have to be open-minded to things because you'll discover a lot of things that are very beneficial and help you if you just are open to the idea of it. And not everything works for
I
everyone, and just because one thing doesn't, don't stop. Keep going.
I I do Reiki as well, so I don't think it's weird.
Oh, okay.
um,
Yeah, like some people are like,
awesome.
oh, that's like nonsense. That's not real, but I think it is, and it helps me. And
Yeah, I
so
know a lot of
you
people
just
think
have
it's
to feel
weird
the
until
change.
I like do Reiki or I do hypnosis on them, then they're like, "Oh, I get it now." Um, very
Yeah.
cool. So tell us what you're doing as an entrepreneur.
So I actually have 4 businesses now. Since Tony, my entrepreneurial journey has grown from 1 business to 4, which is really exciting for me because in order to be an entrepreneur, you have to be able to show up every day and you have to be in a really great mindset. And your attitude that you bring to your business reflects in your business. And
Yes,
I'm really
totally.
thankful that I can control that. And my first business is in health and wellness. I started off just as a brand ambassador helping people figure out how to live a healthier lifestyle. And then my other business is in success coaching. So I help people work towards achieving their goals, whatever they may be, and master the science of success. And I do that by teaching them the pillars of professionalism and how to be a professional in any endeavor. My third business is actually in brand management. So I'll do websites, social media, any kind of marketing, and create a great brand for small businesses.
Okay.
And my last business is one that I just launched about a month ago. Maybe it's 6 weeks ago now. And that is focused on helping people convert their homes to all natural, non-toxic environments. A lot of the cleaning products, food, skincare, hair care, all those products we use have tons of chemicals and toxins in them. And it
Of
does
course.
impact mental health. It is proven to have an impact on mental health, but also has an impact on physical health. And as a child, I was very sick all the time, and I am convinced it's because of a lot of the toxins I was exposed to unknowingly. Um,
Sure.
and so I'm really on a mission to raise awareness about how to create a healthier environment for yourself. And so I love helping people convert their homes to non-toxic environments.
Awesome. So everything you're doing is stuff you're super passionate about, which I love. What yeah, that's awesome. So I'm super glad you came on this call. It was amazing. I learned a lot. What was I going to ask you? Yeah, where can people find you if they want to follow you or keep up with you?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm Shelly Baca NYC. On Twitter, I'm Shelly Baca NYC. On Facebook, I'm facebook.com/Shelly Baca NYC. And Baca spelled Baca. Where else am I? YouTube. My YouTube channel is just kind of starting up, but that's also Shelly Baca NYC. And my website, of course, is shellybaca.com. And what else am I on? Pretty much anywhere on the internet, I'm on Shelly
I think
Baca
that covers
NYC
it.
or Shelly Baca.
That's pretty easy. Okay. Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
I like
so
to keep it
much.
easy.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
I know I'm going to send this to people and it's going to change their lives. So this is the message that has to be shared. So we really appreciate you coming on and sharing it with us.
of
And
course.
I will see you.
Thank you
I
so
will
much for
see
having
you.
me. I had a great time.
Yeah, I will see you. I'm guessing at an
In
event
November?
pretty soon. Yes, are you going?
Are you going in November? Yeah,
I am planning on it. Yeah. So
definitely.
okay, awesome. We will have to
Okay.
hang out there and maybe do another Facebook Live, a follow up.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, you have a great Friday. Thanks again.
All right. You too. Bye.
Bye.